Hi guys, so today's video is going to be very different from normal. Today is actually going to be a much lighter little video where we're going to talk about the tools that I use when I do watercolor. The sketchbook that I use is actually this Canson one. It's Canson XL mixed media, and I love this paper. It's actually very affordable. It's a really thick paper. It takes watercolor pretty well. It doesn't buckle a lot. This is what I use when I'm doing a lot looser, lighter, practice type stuff with watercolor, or really anything that I just don't want to use my final paper for. The final paper that I like to use is actually Arches. It's cold press, which means that it has a little bit more texture, and hot press tends to be a little bit smoother. We can talk now about the actual paints. So this is the palette that I use, and I'm gonna have to look up what it's actually called because all it says on it is a watercolor palette. But it's really great. It's kind of the perfect size for me because it fits really well on my desk, and I've never felt like I didn't have enough mixing space on the actual palette. So it's a really good palette if you want something that's just nice and easy to handle and doesn't take up a lot of space. But the palette, or not the palette, the pigments that I use, almost all of them are M-gram pigments, and this is what the tubes look like. And these are really great. They're very saturated for watercolors, and I really like that. I like having control over the saturation. So when it's already really saturated, I can desaturate it myself, but you can't really make something more saturated. So that's why I really like these. They're really great for that. They're really good quality. They mix well together. I highly recommend M-gram is the brand, but yeah, I love them. A few of these are actually Winsor & Newton professional watercolor, so that's what this looks like. But I kind of felt that they had pretty similar quality as the M-gram ones, but these were a little bit more expensive and much smaller, so I tend to prefer these ones. But the two pens that I use are the Pentel Pocket Brush Pen, which is the one that I get questions on the most, and this is what it looks like. A lot of people love using these, and I do too. It has, like the name implies, a brush nib, and it is waterproof, which is great. I do actually find that it's a little bit uncontrollable, especially when I do broader strokes. It tends to crack, and it doesn't get all the way into all the little cracks in the watercolor paper, so I have to go much slower. And when you're going much slower, it means that the line gets much more not stable. So that's kind of my biggest issue with this one, is that it forces me to move a little bit slower than I want, and it affects the smoothness of the final piece. But I do highly recommend it. I love it. It is refillable, and it's a very nice pen to use. I like the feel of it. I also use micron pens, and since they have a felt nib, they're very stiff, which means I can get very precise details. So I really do still like these. But my new absolute favorite method for inking is actually just using a brush and a bottle of ink. So this is the brush that I've been using. It's a Winsor & Newton University Series 00 brush, and it's really fine and precise, and I love it. Basically, it's very stiff, so it keeps its point really easily, and I'm able to get very fine details with this, and it's actually very easy to control. I was surprised at how easy it was to get very smooth strokes. Unlike the Pentel Pocket Brush Pen, this one just really behaved, and it listened to exactly what I wanted. So I really love this. It was a lot more pleasant of an experience for me. But the ink that I use now is actually the ink that I've used for a little while now. It's Speedball Super Black, and I really like this because it doesn't really have the weird shine that some inks can have. I highly recommend this stuff. I love it. You do have to mix it up because it does separate a little bit, and I do like to wait a while for this stuff to dry before I start putting any water on it, and then I put it into a Tupperware. And I definitely prefer this method because that way I can see exactly how much ink I'm picking up. I can be very precise about that, and I can dab a little bit of ink off of it when I have too much on it. So what I like to tape my paper down to is actually a really awesome thing. I learned this in my watercolor class, but this is what it is, if you can kind of see it. Basically, all it is just foam core that I wrapped in packing tape, so it's that plastic tape. And it's awesome. Basically, it's really lightweight. It's perfectly waterproof because it's coated in that plastic tape. It cost me maybe $2 to make this. So I really love this thing, and But that is pretty much it for the supplies that I use when I am doing watercolor. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you can catch my future art videos, and until then, I'll see you at my next one.